In the tales of old, the knight in shining harness is oft painted as a fortress upon 2 feet, unbroken, unyielding, and beyond the reach of mortal peril. Yet truth in the chronicles of war tells a harsher tale. For steel, though fair to the eye and steadfast to the touch, is but one wall twixt life and death, and every wall hath its cracks. In the press of battle, where the roar of men and the thundering of hoofs meet the sting of arrow and the crash of mace, even the mightiest harness may falter. Here is the truth of the medieval knight, not as the minstrel's song, but as the field of slaughter knew him. Hear these words, noble friend, and if the telling doth stir thy heart, give thy favour with a like, share this tale abroad, and take thy place amongst those who subscribe for more lore of steel, valour, and the Middle Ages. In the minds of many, a knight clad in full plate is like unto a walking keep, his body encased in a fortress of shining steel, untouchable, unstoppable, and beyond harm. Yet in sooth, the fields of medieval war bore witness to another truth, one less gilded by the songs of bards and the fancies of idle folk. For harness, however finely wrought, was but one layer in the long weaving of survival, and it brought with it its own burdens. In the tumult of real combat, cunning stratagems, weapons shaped for a single cruel purpose, the frailty of the flesh, and the wild turns of fate each had power to pierce through more than iron. To understand why armour was not ever the sure shield men thought it, one must look beyond the gleam of the burnished breastplate, past the fair visor, and deep into the mud, the blood, and the bitter breath of battle. For there, amidst the press and the cry, the truth lay bare. Though the common fancy paints armour as invincible, the truth is that a full harness was a pact, a bargain between protection and movement, between weight and weariness. The noble suit of plate oft weighed 50 to 60 pounds. A strong man could bear it, aye, but he could not cast off the heat it trapped, nor the hunger it gave to his limbs. After long hours of march through mire, or riding under the cruel sun, or straining in the fight, the body would grow heavy, the breath laboured, and the step slow. In such moments the knight's speed waned, his strength dulled, and his guard dropped. No steel, however fine, could return the quickness that exhaustion stole. Moreover, a harness was never a perfect shell. The master smith must leave space at the joints, the crook of the arm, the fold of the knee, the hollow of the armpit, the tender part of the neck, else the knight could not bend, nor turn, nor strike. In these small windows of flesh an enemy found hope. Many a weapon was born for such work, the estoc, a long, stiff, piercing sword, shaped to thrust into those narrow gates, the spear's head, slender and sure, the spike of the pollax, all made to slip between plates and taste blood. Even when the armour turned the blade, force itself was a weapon. The war hammer, the flanged mace, these needed not pierce the plate to harm the man. A heavy blow could dent steel deep enough to crack bone beneath, or send such a shudder through the helm that the mind swam, the knees gave way, and the knight fell senseless, though no cut marked his flesh. Nor was the harness without other perils. Its very sheen and noble bearing marked the wearer for all to see. Upon the field such men drew eyes, for they were worth ransom or glory. And thus the knight found himself beset, hemmed round by many hands and many blades, his harness no match for the weight of foes. And then came the arrows, not all were alike. Some bore broad heads, wide and cruel, to tear and bleed a man, deadly to clothe and flesh, yet less so to tempered plate. Others were bodkins, narrow as a stiletto and sharp as spite, made to split mail and slip through weak points. At close range, loosed from the bow of a strong archer, such shafts might pierce even thin plate. Oft a knight wore layers, gambeson padded thick, mail shirt and plate atop, but a well-placed bodkin could still find its way to the heart. Armour had its strong days and its failing days, and on the field there was no promise which the day would bring. Yet steel was not the only foe to steel. Tactics shaped by cunning minds could fell a knight as surely as any weapon. Wise commanders learned that to strike harder was not always the road to victory. They learned instead to shape the ground, the pace, the flow of the fight. Mud became a weapon, robbing knights of their footing. Narrow paths or steep hills could turn their weight into their bane. Stakes and ditches broke the charge of cavalry, scattering men in harness, so they came not as a wall, but as a ragged trickle. Arrows and bolts, loosed in steady rhythm, need not kill outright. They were a scourge to momentum. Shield arms grew weary, helmets dipped low, the march slowed. Behind Pavai's shields, crossbowmen advanced, forcing the armored foe to choose between standing under the storm or rushing forward into the teeth of waiting pikes. Formations played their part too. Dense ranks of spears made a hedgehog no knight would wish to charge, while a thin line might tempt overconfidence, only to yield and lure the enemy into a snare. Once a flank was turned, the finest armor could not save a man from encirclement. Many times knights dismounted, for on foot they might hold a line better than from horseback in certain fights. Yet on foot they lost the lance's shock and became prey to the slow grinding push of pikes and halberds. In the close crush, half swording found the gaps, hooks pulled men to the ground, and wrestling holds used the very weight of the harness against its wearer. A man thrown down with foes upon him could scarce rise again in his heavy gear. In sieges, the high walls became a new weapon. From above, stones fell with crushing weight, beams toppled, boiling pitch or fire cared nothing for the finest cuirass. Smoke choked the air, starvation wore men thin. Armor was no shield against thirst or sleeplessness. Many a knight's fate was sealed not by a blade, but by slow, grinding want, and weapons. They ever changed to answer armor's rise. In the early days, mail and simple helms turned aside the slash of the sword, and so men turned to weapons of focused force. Maces flanged to strike deep, war hammers with beaks to bite steel, polearms that bore axe, hammer, and spike in one cruel shaft. As plate grew harder and bore fluted ridges to deflect blows, so too did swords grow stiffer, narrower, meant to pierce and pry. The estoc was made for the half-sword grip, guiding the point into visor or underarm. The rondel dagger, slender and strong, was made to slip into the seam and end the fight when the knight was brought low. At greater reach the halberd's axe could hew, its hook could drag a rider down, and its spike could strike through a gap. The bec de corbin, the crow's beak, was a terror to plate, striking dense deep into helm and cuirass before yanking the foe to the ground. Archers and crossbowmen worked by the same creed, less cutting, more piercing. Crossbows grew powerful, their bolts thick and heavy. Longbowmen drew bows of terrible weight, their shafts seeking the chink, the joint, the visor slit. Even without a killing blow, they slowed the advance, made the enemy drop their heads, and gave the billmen and pikemen their moment. When two men in full harness met face to face, skill was king. The sword was as much a lever as a blade. The pommel struck like a hammer, the hilt caught and pulled. The point was steered with both hands into weakness. Throws and trips preyed on the high center of balance. Victory lay in leverage, not merely in edge. In time, the gun changed all. The handgun and arquebus made the breastplate a lesser comfort. Armorers thickened the steel over the heart, but weight rose and cost sword, and still the smoke and shock of shot at close range made plate less certain. By the 15th and 16th centuries, many knights wore only 3/4 plate, trusting more in speed, formation, and the pike's hedge than in another pound of steel. Yet above all, the human frame was ever the final measure. Steel could not make a man tireless. Beneath the closed helm heat built, sweat streamed, and breath grew hard. The slit of the visor narrowed sight, sound dulled under padding, the heart raced, legs burned, and footwork faltered. Hunger, thirst, and the march's toil sapped strength before a single blow fell. Rain, soaked padding grew heavy, mud clung to the boots, a stumble could cast a man to his knees. If pinned, he might never rise before the killing thrust came. Horses gave reach but also risk. A beast spooked might turn into pikes or throw its rider into the press, where weight and chaos conspired against escape. The mind too could fail. Adrenaline burned bright and then left the body trembling, judgment clouded, the will shaken. A rumor, a banner falling, could set men crowding, tripping, fouling their own ranks, and beyond the field the slow poisons worked. Cuts turned foul with infection, smoke choked the lungs, straps frayed, dense pinched flesh. No knight, however clad, was free from the reach of chance, sickness, or ill fortune. Thus it was in the age of mail and plate, of lance and bow, of hammer and halberd. Steel was a faithful servant, but never a perfect master. The knight who lived was he who wed his harness to skill, to wit, to comradeship, and to the favour of fortune. Thus ends our telling, friend. If thou hast walked with me through the mire and the clangour, through the weight of plate and the perils that stalked beneath it, thou knowest now that the knight's fate was never bound by steel alone. Valour, cunning, the strength of the body, and the unyielding will, these were the true shields in the age of chivalry. If this tale of medieval battle, armour, weapons, and war hath stirred thy mind and quickened thy heart, then tarry not, lend thy hand with a like, share it amongst thy kin, and take thy place as one who subscribes, that thou mayst ever ride with us into the storied past of knights, castles, and truth behind the legends. Until the next telling, keep thy sword keen, thy harness tight, and thy spirit ever steadfast.